The ABCs of Courage 3.
It was something I thought about all the time. But who could you go talk to? Many's the time that I wished I could read something, but I knew there couldn't be too many people willing to help a person like me, so I just did my best to keep it a secret. I've never written a letter in my life. When the holidays came, it was very hard for me to pick out a card for my wife. I'd look at the cards, but I'd have no idea what they said, so I'd buy her a flower instead. Now that he is studying with Mrs. Lord, he said, he can at least hope that things will change. I dream that before long I can really read something, he said. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just to be able to read something from start to finish would be enough. Mrs. Lord tells me that once you start to read, it comes easier all the time. It scares me that there's a possibility I can't do it. I'm 55 years old after all. I get disgusted with myself if I have a bad day here and I miss a lot of words. But when there's been a good day, I'll feel great at the end of our lesson. I'll go home and tell my wife, I learned this word. Or I'll say, Teacher says I have good handwriting. And then my wife and I will work on the spelling cards. He said that because he is working again, sometimes he will have to skip tutoring sessions. It kills me when that happens, he said. But the construction business is pretty good right now, and sometimes in the afternoon, the boss will tell me that he needs me to work overtime. I can't tell him why I have to be here. So I'll go off to a payphone and call Mrs. Lord and give her the bad news. I think about reading even when I'm at work, though. I'll be working, but I'll be reciting the alphabet in my head. I keep the spelling cards in my truck, and if it's time for a coffee break, I'll go out there and work on my words. He said that before he started trying to learn to read, he never picked up a newspaper or a magazine. Now I like to pick them up and look at them, he said. I think to myself that maybe, someday, I can read them. And I'll go into a store now and pick up books. I'll pick up the ones that have covers that look interesting. And then I'll flip through them until I see some words that I know. Most of the pages are filled with words that I don't know. But then I'll see some words that Mrs. Lord taught me. An, or is, or the, and I'll stare at them. It feels so good to know them. It is getting darker outside. The man has been up since before dawn. His truck is parked outside Mrs. Lord's house. Motorists pass by on their way home. At the dining room table, Mrs. Lord is helping him to write a sentence. Let's try, the cow is brown, she says. First word, the. The man checks his list of words. Then, on a clean sheet of paper, he writes, the. Good, Mrs. Lord says. Next word, cow. He checks his list and writes the word. Very good, Mrs. Lord says. Now, is. That word he knows easily. He writes it. Now, brown, Mrs. Lord says. He thinks for a second, then writes brown at the end of the sentence he has built. Right, Mrs. Lord says. End of sentence. The man looks up. There is something very close to pride in his eyes. I can't wait until I can write a letter, he says. The first letter I write is going to be to my wife. I'm going to tell her how much I love her. On the cover of Esquire every month, there is a slogan, Man at his best. Once in a while, when you really aren't expecting it, you find out what that means.